The airplane cabin buzzed with the sounds of passengers settling in, the occasional rustle of a newspaper, and the soft chime of the intercom. The first-class section was filled with well-dressed travelers, some working on laptops, others sipping champagne as they prepared for a long flight. Among them, sitting quietly by the window, was Olivia. She was just 13, her curly hair framing her face as she stared out at the airport runway, lost in thought. This was supposed to be a special trip with her father, an exciting experience, flying first class for the first time. But excitement quickly turned into something else. A shadow loomed over her. Olivia turned, meeting the sharp gaze of a blonde flight attendant standing stiffly in the aisle. Her uniform was pristine, her hair pulled back into a tight bun, her lips pressed into a thin line. Something in her eyes told Olivia that this was not a routine check. "Excuse me," the woman said coldly. "I think you're in the wrong seat." Olivia blinked. "No, ma'am. This is my seat." The flight attendant's eyes narrowed. She glanced at the empty seat next to Olivia, then back at her. "I don't think so. First class is for paying passengers only. Who let you sit here?" The accusation hung in the air. Olivia felt her stomach tighten. She had heard about situations like this before, but she never imagined she would be in one. She sat up straighter, trying to steady her voice. "I am a paying passenger. My dad booked this seat for me." The woman let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't think so. First class isn't exactly affordable for just anyone." Olivia's fingers curled into fists. The people around her were beginning to stare. A businessman in a navy suit stole a glance from behind his newspaper. A woman across the aisle shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Yet, no one said a word. "Let me see your boarding pass," the flight attendant said, crossing her arms. Olivia reached into her bag, her hands slightly trembling, and pulled out the ticket. She handed it over, watching as the woman's eyes flicked over the details. The expression on her face didn't change, but something in her posture stiffened. "Where's your father?" she asked. "He's in the lounge." "He'll be boarding soon," Olivia said, keeping her voice firm. The flight attendant let out a sigh, looking around as if expecting someone to confirm her suspicions. "Well, until he gets here, I'll have to ask you to move. We can't have people sneaking into first class." A murmur of discomfort rippled through the nearby passengers. A woman across the aisle leaned forward. "I saw her board with the first-class group. She belongs here." The flight attendant's eyes snapped to the woman. "Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but I know how these things work." "Do you?" a man in the row behind Olivia asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because it looks to me like you're making a big mistake." The flight attendant's jaw clenched. But before she could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" Heads turned. A tall, imposing man stood at the entrance of the first-class cabin, his presence commanding attention. He was dressed in a tailored suit, his expression unreadable. Olivia's heart leaped. "Dad," she called. The flight attendant turned, her face instantly paling. A hush fell over the cabin. Some passengers straightened in their seats, while others exchanged glances of realization. The well-dressed businessman who had been watching from behind his newspaper lowered it slightly, whispering to the man beside him. "You know who that is, right?" The man in question was Charles Donovan, CEO of the very airline they were flying on. The color drained from the flight attendant's face. "Yes, sir," she stammered, taking a small step back. I didn't realize." Mr. Donovan's gaze swept over his daughter before settling on the woman. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. "Did I just hear you accuse my daughter of sneaking into first class?" The flight attendant swallowed hard. "I was just trying to verify." "By humiliating a child in front of an entire cabin," he interrupted, his voice cool and precise. Passengers around them remained silent, watching the situation unfold with bated breath. Some were already murmuring among themselves, shaking their heads in disbelief. "I assumed," the flight attendant started. "Yes," Mr. Donovan said. "You assumed. Without asking. Without checking. You assumed my daughter didn't belong here based on your own prejudices." The woman flinched as if she had been struck. "Sir, I didn't mean." "You meant exactly what you said," Mr. Donovan cut in. "And because of that, you embarrassed my daughter and made every passenger here uncomfortable." The silence in the cabin was deafening. Even the flight attendant standing near the galley looked uneasy, unsure of what to do. Olivia watched as her father turned to her, his expression softening. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" She nodded, but the lingering sting of humiliation still sat heavy in her chest. Her father turned back to the flight attendant. "You will personally apologize to my daughter. And when we land, we will be having a conversation about your future with this airline." Ms. Caldwell's face was bright red. Her lips trembled, but she finally turned to Olivia. I'm sorry," she muttered, though the words felt hollow. Mr. Donovan wasn't done. "I expect my airline to be a place where all passengers, regardless of their background, feel welcome. And right now, you have failed in that responsibility." With that, he took his seat next to Olivia, the tension still thick in the air. The flight attendant hesitated for a moment longer before quickly turning on her heel and walking toward the galley. The moment she was out of sight, a soft murmur of conversation filled the cabin once more. The businessman across the aisle leaned toward Olivia. "That was quite the show." She gave a small smile, though her heart was still racing. Her father chuckled. "You see, sweetheart? First class really is an experience you'll never forget." And she never would. Not because of the luxury, or the seats, or the service. But because in that moment, she learned an important lesson. Some people will judge you without knowing you. But the way you stand up for yourself, and the way others stand up for you, will always matter more. So, what do you think? Was justice served? Let us know in the comments below. And if you love stories with powerful twists like this one, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.